But without further ado, I'd like to introduce Claire Robe, who is our libraries relationship manager at the Arts Council, and she'll be able to tell us about the project grants funding from ACE, which is open until the end of this financial year, and is a brilliant opportunity for libraries.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for having me. Just to say that Project Grants is an open funding stream, so it's always open. So it's not going to stop at the end of this year. Yes, hello everybody. My name is Claire Robe and I am the relationship manager for libraries in London. The Arts Council is split into regions, so each region has its own libraries relationship manager. So wherever you are, there will be someone like me who will be able to give you advice and help you. But today I'm going to give you a general overview of the National Lottery Project Grants funding stream. So as I said, it's an open access funding stream. So today I'm going to talk to you about what it funds, how you apply, and what happens to your application. Project Grants is our most popular funding programme, and it replaced the highly successful Grants for the Arts in early 2018, providing many of the same functions as well as some new ones, and breathing life into an old programme. And this is also now part of our new 2020 to 2023 strategy, Let's Create. We are the Arts and Cultural Development Agency in England. That means we champion, develop and invest in artistic and cultural experiences that enrich people's lives. And we support a range of activities across the arts, museums and libraries. Our mission statement is Let's Create. And to help us achieve this mission, we have set ourselves 3 outcomes which underpin everything we do. Outcome 1 is creative people. Everyone can develop and express their creativity throughout their life. Outcome 2 is cultural communities. Villages, towns and cities thrive through a collaborative approach to culture. And outcome 3 is a creative and cultural country. England's cultural sector is innovative, collaborative and international. To achieve these, the organisations and people we invest in will need to adapt. And this will be steered by our 4 investment principles, which are ambition and quality. Cultural organisations are ambitious and committed to improving the quality of their work. Inclusivity and relevance. England's diversity is fully reflected in the organisations and individuals that we support and in the culture they produce. Dynamism. Cultural organisations can thrive and are better able to respond to the challenges of the next decade. And environmental responsibility. Cultural organisations lead the way in their approach to the climate emergency. By committing to these investment principles, we believe organisations will be able to deliver the outcomes and provide even greater benefit to the public. So during the pandemic, in the early months, we had to close Project Grants down because we redistributed all of our money to emergency funding. But we reopened Project Grants in July. And we wanted to get it up and running as quickly as possible so we could support individuals and organisations to get things going again and to help people take their first steps in getting re-engaged with culture and creativity. But this means that we are working in a really different world post-COVID, and we have been receiving applications that have changed, that reflect these circumstances as well. And we expected to get a really high volume of applications, and we absolutely have. So this means we have had to prioritise where we make our investments to make a significant difference at this moment. So in the current context, we are particularly keen to support applications from individuals, including time to think and plan, research and development activity, organisational development activity, and live activity that can be safely delivered within this period. And also, it's really important to us that we fund activities that closely align with our equality objectives. But there are specific types of projects and expenditure that we won't be able to support through project grants, even during this period. And those are reflating or creating reserves, retrospective costs, so anything that's already happened, debt mitigation, and projects that don't have any short or long-term public benefit. So again, I said that we are receiving a number of applications at the moment. So just to say, it's really important that you think about when you're going to make your application, and don't rush to submit an application before you're ready. Make sure that you've thought through the best way to shape your activity and how you're going to manage it. We have carefully managed our budget across the financial year to ensure that there will be funds available. So whenever you put your application in is okay, because it's always open. And we are receiving a high amount of applications at the moment, especially within the London area, but also all across the country. So at the moment we are having a smaller success rate, but that just means if you don't get it the first time, really do put it back in again. Try and get some feedback if you weren't successful. So if you want to get feedback, I would really recommend speaking to one of your library relationship managers in your area, and they can find out feedback from the panel and help you to just tweak your application. So when you put it back in, you've got a better chance of being successful. So our equality objectives will also inform our decision making in response to COVID-19, helping us to support communities most impacted, as well as respond to inequity across the sector as a result of social injustice. And they are as follows. We want to improve access to the sector for disabled, neurodivergent and deaf workers, audiences and participants. We want to ensure funded organisations and projects improve and can demonstrate meaningful engagement with Black, Asian and minority ethnic workers, audiences and participants. We want to challenge racism and embed anti-racism values across the Arts Council policy and funding decisions. We want to address specific disadvantages facing children and young people and older people as a result of COVID-19, and improve access to creative and cultural activities to those from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, which I think speaks to what libraries do absolutely, because we work with all of these people. So I think that when you're putting in applications from your library services, really do think about these objectives and how you can address them. So the 4 criteria for project grants are quality, public engagement, finance and management. While the criteria remain the same, the information you need to provide to answer the questions in the application form might feel a bit different during this period. When we assess and make decisions, we'll approach your answers with as much flexibility and openness as we can, and a keen sense of the challenges that everyone will be facing at the moment. It's still important that we ask these questions to determine what we will fund. So public engagement. We know that public engagement is likely to involve smaller numbers of people for live activities at the moment, or focusing on engaging people through digital means. Public engagement might happen as part of the project, or it might happen in the longer term, beyond the boundaries of your project. If you're undertaking organisational development or focusing on research and development, you might use this section to tell us how the work you're proposing will mean you are better able to engage people with your work in the future. We understand that good public engagement will look different. It's important that we find out about all the different ways the work we support through project grants will reach people. Next is management. Managing an activity effectively and safely in this period means that applicants will need to take some new and different things into account. If an activity involves working with the public, you will need to have a plan in place to do this as safely as possible and manage risks effectively. You'll need to use your answers in this section to tell us how you can feasibly deliver the project you're proposing and what you've done to make sure it is safely delivered. You'll need to think about contingency plans if the situation changes, which it inevitably will. Match funding. We know that for most artists, creatives, and organisations, the current situation will make finding additional support really, really challenging. So we have removed the requirement for the minimum 10% match funding during this period. If you don't have match funding or you still have less than 10%, you will still be able to submit your application. If you do have some match funding, cash or in kind, or a mix of both, do still tell us about it in your project budget. What this means in practice is that any match funding that enhances a project by demonstrating a strong partnership approach, for example, can be viewed in the application's favour. However, a lack of match funding cannot be used solely as a reason not to prefer an application for funding. We can only support project-related costs through project grants. We are not able to fund costs that have already occurred or losses. And just to say that is only until the end of March 2021 for the no match funding requirement. So after that, you will again need to have 10% match funding. So this is the bit that we've all been waiting for, libraries projects. All libraries can apply to project grants for new and creative and cultural projects that focus on any of the disciplines that come under the Arts Council's remit. So literature, visual arts, theatre, music, dance, and combined arts. And in addition, local authority library services can apply to project grants for new activities that help them to deliver any of the 4 universal offers in a developmental way, including projects that do not focus on any of the disciplines in our remit listed above. This is a really new way of looking at funding libraries, and it's only just come in. So I think it started when we reopened project grants in July. So now you can apply under the Universal Library offers, which, as you probably already know, are reading, culture and creativity, information and digital, and health and wellbeing. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what sort of things you could apply for under these projects. So reading projects encourage people to read for pleasure, support literacy, and create excitement about reading. Reading projects may not always contain artistic or creative aims and outcomes. Libraries can apply for the development and delivery of projects that increase access to reading for pleasure for individuals and communities. We are particularly interested in projects that encourage new or reluctant readers or offer opportunities for broadening the choices of existing readers to enjoy types of literature that they may not have previously considered. Projects might include reading group activity, events, workshops, residencies, promotions, or additional activities to enhance or extend existing reading programs, such as the Summer Reading Challenge. Culture and creativity. Culture and creativity projects provide arts and culture experiences in local settings to stimulate, provoke, and entertain, to spark curiosity and imagination, and to encourage participation and the development of new skills. Culture and creativity projects are likely to contain an artistic or creative aims and outcomes. So the projects may include storytelling, performance, be that dance, theatre, or concerts, creative writing workshops, exhibitions, poetry readings and spoken word, artists in residence, digital installations, activities or projects using VR, AR or mixed reality, festivals, community created festivals, cookery or food related cultural activity, oral or local history projects. Information and digital. Information and digital projects focus on libraries providing quality information and digital support, as well as working with innovative technology. Projects might include learning devices, for example, iPads, to increase interaction with isolated service users. And I think this is really important at the moment. During lockdown, the digital divide was just exposed, and it was really, really noticeable that there are so many people that just can't engage digitally in the same way that lots of people can, and that libraries were that place where everyone could go and access free Wi-Fi and also use the PCs that libraries have within them. And I think at the moment we need, as libraries, to address that. And I think that projects under Information and Digital Universal Library Offer that really think about ways to engage people that are digitally excluded would be really favourably looked on by us at the moment. And I think it's important to not just think about loaning devices, but also think, how are the people going to use the devices once they get them home? If they don't have Wi-Fi, we need to be thinking about how to provide that data for them to use in a safe way. Yes, or you could think about projects working with robotics and virtual reality, maker spaces, online training and resources, science and coding based work, or digital or interactive gaming clubs, archive and research techniques, job club related activity, promoting and supporting equality of access to online resources and services, promoting debate and the growth of active engaged citizenship. And then there's health and wellbeing. So health and wellbeing projects focus on promoting healthy living, combating loneliness, and reducing health-related socio-economic inequalities. Projects may include activities that support particular groups of the community, such as those with dementia or mental health service users, sensory experiences for people with special educational needs. And there's a really lovely example of a project that we funded in Merton, where they turned all of their children's libraries into sensory libraries for children with special educational needs. And that opened at the beginning of this year. So it was, I think, February. So I was actually able to go to the opening, and it was one of the last things that I was able to go to before lockdown. And it was just brilliant. They had some children from local SEND schools come in, and there was a performance of Frozen. So I was singing along to all the songs. But it was just brilliant. And it was such a brilliant example of culture and creativity and health and wellbeing coming together. And that's something else that you can think about when applying under the universal offers. You don't just have to choose one for your project. You can have a mixture of the different universal offers, but it could also enhance. So if you are thinking of a culture and creativity project, that there may be parts of that project that cross over into health and well-being. So you can use both of them to apply for projects. You could also think about projects that support projects for support and guidance that focus on specific areas of interest for a community, such as healthy eating or drugs and alcohol advice. You could even apply for a yoga or Tai Chi or other activities that support healthy living. Social prescribing activities and resources, bibliotherapy or self-help support activities, or hobby clubs for different user groups, like board games, film clubs, or crochet. SSNs support the development, use, and wider understanding of collections by sharing knowledge, expertise, and resources with people working with collections. Organisations can apply to project grants for activity that involves subject specialist network activity that benefits accredited museums. Some SSN networks are hosted by national portfolio organisations, although NPOs cannot generally apply to project grants for anything other than national activities at over 100,000. We make an exception for NPOs applying specifically for SSN activity on behalf of its wider network, as long as that network includes accredited museums. NPOs applying in this way can apply for any amount and for non-national activities where appropriate. All applicants considering applying for SSN activity must demonstrate how their project furthers public engagement with museums and their collections in the long or short term. So Project Grants is our open access fund that exists to be reactive to new ideas, new talent, and new approaches in arts and culture. These are the different elements of that programme. So arts activity, we support dance, literature, music, theatre, visual arts, and combined arts, which also includes festivals and carnivals. Museum practice, accredited museums only are eligible to apply for activities relating to their collections or core objectives. Public engagement, projects we fund must reach people in England, either in the short or the long term. This can be in person, online, or as a visitor, listener, or reader, and we call this public engagement. Creative media. Basically, this means using technology to make and share work in our supported disciplines. It's not mandatory, but it's something we are highly interested in. So what sort of activity can we fund? We support things like gigs and concerts, plays, exhibitions, residencies, research and development, workshops, building work, tours, online work, book writing, creative podcasts. The list is endless. So who can apply? Anyone in the EU for work that benefits artists or audiences in England. This includes individuals. It's one of the few funding programmes in the country that will support individual artists, which is why it's so popular. And what we can't fund. So these are the examples of the main things that we can't support, that we get applications for. So activities that do not align to one of our supported art forms or disciplines. So a classic example is film as an art form, as opposed to film as a medium for delivering artistic work. This is covered by the British Film Institute, who distribute lottery funds to cover film. We can't support fashion, architecture, photography that focuses on fashion journalism or marketing, as opposed to photography as a visual artist's medium. If something has no public benefit, we won't fund that. We can fund R&D projects, but you must be able to evidence potential long-term benefit. We can't fund costs that take place before we are able to make a decision. There is no retrospective funding under lottery rules. So this programme is funded by money from the National Lottery, and including buying goods or services that has already started, been bought, ordered, or contracted before we make a decision about your application. For example, someone is applying for a theatre production. They give their start project date as the day after the 6-week period turnaround. From the activity plan, that we can see that the day of one of the projects, that day one of the project is the first day of his performance. There are costs in the expenditure for marketing, set, build, and rehearsals. All of these things must have happened before day one of the performance, which is before we can make our decision. These costs are therefore retrospective. So please bear this in mind with the 6 and 12-week turnaround times. we can't fund international activities. There are specific circumstances surrounding international activity that we can fund, such as research or parts of tours that are detailed in our information sheets that you can find on our website. Education. We can fund learning, but mostly informal workshops, not national curriculum or university fees. We can't fund any profit-making and fundraising projects. You can pay yourself a wage or fee, but projects must essentially be not-for-profit. A really, really big reason that we don't put projects through is because they are underdeveloped. We use this reason more than any other. This describes applications that do not include enough information for us to be able to make a decision. The best way to ensure your application is not underdeveloped is to read the guidance and answer the prompts there. They are the same prompts that we use to make our decision. So we are being transparent and trying to help applicants. So the basic criteria is simply, what are you applying for and how much do you want? Our 4 criteria. Each of these 4 sections relates to a specific appraisal section and may be broken down into a few different sections made up of either questions and answers or tables to fill in, such as the budget. So quality is all about you and your project, what your experience is, what your project is going to be. Public engagement is who will engage with the activity and how they'll engage, and how will you make sure that the project reaches them. Finance is money and experience of running projects and budgets. And management is how will you make it happen? So why do we ask about finance and management? We are distributing £97.3 million worth of lottery funds, and we need to ensure that we are investing it responsibly. So the amount and type of information requested is dependent on the value of your application. So the more money that you ask us for, the more information we will ask you for. So how to apply our how to apply guidance goes through this application form step by step, giving further detail about the kind of information we want to see in the different sections in the form. Break down numbers in the budget as much as possible and show you're working. Include a lot of detail in the project plan. Poor planning is no plan at all. I don't think I've said this, but so with project grants, we have 3 separate streams. The first is under 15,000. So you can apply for projects from 1,000 up to 15. And that is a 6-week turnaround. So from the moment you press submit in our online application thing, you will get a decision within six weeks. The next one is over 15,000 up to 100,000, and that is a 12-week turnaround. And the way that works is a bit more in depth. So as I said, we will ask you for more information for that. And if you're applying for over 50,000, we ask you for more about finance and also risk. And then you can also apply for projects over 100,000. And these projects have to be much bigger. And the way that works is it's usually a 6-month turnaround, and there's an EOI, so you have to put in an expression of interest first, and that goes to a panel. And if that gets through, then you're invited to apply, and then that can take up to 12 weeks or even longer sometimes, especially at the moment, to get an answer. So if you're looking to apply, I really recommend looking at our website first. We've got a wealth of information on there for you, and we've got information sheets. There's a library's information sheet that is really good, so I really recommend that you look at those. So project grants is massive, and no one person can hold everything in their head, not even me. But the answer to almost every question we've ever been asked is in here somewhere. The project grants pages of our website has a great deal of information, including an "Is my project ready?" quiz, how to apply guidance, absolutely essential reading, which gives you the answers to the form, and then the information sheets for project specific types. So there's touring, international music, libraries. There are 29 in total, but you don't need to look at all of them. You'll probably only need 1 or 2. If you want to talk to someone about eligibility, get some basic advice and help with the online system, I recommend that you speak to our customer services. And at the moment, we aren't in offices. So if you email the inquiries at artscouncil.org, which is on the screen, they will be able to help you. And if you have any questions about Grantium, which is our the system that we use for you to apply and for us to appraise your applications, ask customer services, because they are experts. They know everything about it. But you can also contact relationship managers like me and the different ones in your areas. I'm sure you'll have met your local relationship manager for libraries. So relationship managers, with 10,000 applications every year, we can't always speak to everyone, but we do try and get out and about to help where we can. So with library relationship managers, they usually go to the local or regional libraries connected groups. So I go to the London one, and my colleagues across the country go to the different regional ones. So you will probably be able to meet them there. But also, if you speak to customer services and say that you need to speak to a relationship manager for libraries, they'll also be able to put you in contact if you haven't already got contact details of them. So we have priorities. So our priorities at the moment are areas of low engagement and underrepresented groups. So and also area priorities. We have area priorities within our areas. So that might be work that engages with children and young people, or creative media. We also have help for people that needs information in alternative formats. So these are easy to read documents and audio versions available on our website. If a document isn't available in your format, please contact customer services and we'll do our best to make it for you. And we also have an Access Support Fund. The Access Support Fund is set up to help those applicants and potential applicants with access needs. And that's barriers experienced when trying to access our information and funding. And this might be due to deafness, blindness, or learning difficulties. So this can include making new forms of guidance, someone to help you complete the form, or in one-to-one meetings with us. This might be a note taker, someone to help you physically, or a medical professional if needed. We can translate applications made in British Sign Language into English. But what the fund can't support is access costs to support project or application development, translation of the guidance into other verbal languages, provision for people who do not or have access to a computer, personal access requirements for the project delivery, access requirements for making the project accessible to participants and audience. But if you need any more information about this, please do contact customer services. Oh, I missed that one, sorry. So, project grants is a light touch process. There is just one stage that you need to complete, the application form, and there are no second rounds or further interviews for under 100,000. Applications for over 15,000 go through an extra step, which looks at the application in more detail, and this is the written appraisal. This enables us to make quick decisions and respond to the large volume of applications that we receive. So first of all, you'll go through the eligibility check. Could the activity be funded through project grants? Is the application form complete? 33% of applications that we make ineligible are underdeveloped, which means there's not enough information to make a decision. Please ensure that you've read the guidance and being as clear and comprehensive as possible in your answers. Plan thoroughly. Next, the application goes through a risk check. Finance and management sections are reviewed to check the activity is feasible. Eligibility and risk check are part of the investment centre review, carried out by an impartial centralised team in Manchester with art form and project management expertise. Then it goes through the appraisal against the criteria, and this is the additional step for the over 15,000. An RM, relationship manager, from the applicant's home area will review the application against the 4 criteria: quality, public engagement, management and finance. And we take a more forensic approach to the over 15,000 because they are a greater financial risk to the public money. So 15,000 and under goes to a decision meeting where the artistic quality and public engagement sections are reviewed by a senior relationship manager and relationship manager from the applicant's home area. Using the available budget, panel must fund a range of applications across art forms and geographic areas. So the over 15,000 decision meeting looks at the appraisal scores and statements, and these are reviewed by the leadership team from the applicant's home area. Using the available budget, the panel must fund a range of applications across art forms and geographic areas. So once that's happened, you will get your decision letter, and our online system, Grantium, will notify you via email once a decision has been made. Then you log onto the system to view your letter. If you wish to reapply, you're welcome to do so. But if we have identified any weaknesses, you can reapply if you're unsuccessful. But you must think about the reasons your application was unsuccessful and address any weaknesses we have identified in your feedback. All applications for over 15,000 receive their full written appraisal if they are unsuccessful. So like I said earlier, if you are unsuccessful, you can reapply, but think about why your application was unsuccessful and address the reasons. If you are successful, you have 1 month to accept your offer. When we make an offer, it's conditional. The applicant must first of all accept the offer before providing any further conditional information. We will usually chase the applicant to confirm rather than just saying, right, you've had your 30 days and if you don't want it, you're not having it. We don't do that. So once you've started and you're doing your project, you must submit interim report forms for the next payments and a final activity report form, which must be submitted to get the final 10% payment. This basically asks you how it went, what you learned, what went right and what went wrong, and how your budget compared to the original budget. Things will have changed, and that's fine. We're okay with that. When things change, what we really want to know is how they changed and what you learned. So that's just the slide showing how it works. So that's about it from me. That was a quick introduction to project grants. It's really hard to cover everything in a session like this. So remember where to go for some more information. go to the How to Apply area on our website, look at the information sheets, speak to customer services if you have any questions on eligibility or grantium stuff, and speak to a relationship manager for a project specific information. So if you have an idea and you just want to run it past one of us, we really welcome that, because we want to help you to make the best application that you can. So that's it. Thank you very much for listening, and I will take some questions now.
That's
fantastic.
Claire.
All right, thank you. I've got a few questions lined up for you, and we'll see how many we get through. So we've covered some of this already in your presentation, but can we just give a bit more information about whether it's, so if we've got different initiatives that want to submit an application for, is it better to submit them, can we submit them at the same time? Do we wait for one to come back and then submit the other? And sort of related to that, is it better to submit separate applications for small grants, or a larger application for a grant that would cover a number of initiatives across the universal offers?
So I would always submit per project at different times. If you submit things together, you might come into a meeting, well, you will come into a meeting and compete against yourself. So always submit applications for that application. Once you've got the answer, then, and you're doing the project, then submit for a different project. I would not submit massive projects for a plethora of things, because we need a project to be discrete and have a start and an end and outcomes. And I think if you're trying to do something that's too big, it will weaken the project as a whole. So I would really, really think about what you want, what it is that you want the project to do. What do you want to happen? What do you want to use the money for? Who is going to engage in it, and what will they get from it? I think if you're trying to do too much, it won't work. And don't forget that this is always open, so it's not going to go away. So you can do one project and then do another one. And I would also recommend, if you haven't applied to us before, do a kind of a pilot project in the under 15,000, just so you can get a feel of how it works, what it's like, what it's like to run a project, and then from that project you'll probably find that things happen that you weren't expecting, and you might find that sparks something else. So I would really recommend, like I said, thinking about your projects and then applying, and seeing the outcome of that project, and then thinking about the next one.
Thank you. That's actually answered another question as well that's just come up. The next question I've got is there a definition of art form in relation to applying for an ACE grant as opposed to a medium?
Yeah, our art forms are dance, visual arts, music, theatre, and literature. So I mean, I don't think you need to worry so much about that, because with libraries you are your own art form, and you can apply under the universal offers. So I wouldn't get too worried about art forms and mediums and all of that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you. And the next question I've got, is there any restriction on what the money can be spent on? And I think this is getting more at the difference between capital and revenue funding.
Yeah, so anything, the money can be spent on anything that's to do with the project. So if you need to buy books specifically for the project, you can do that. If you need to buy IT equipment to do with the project, that's okay. But we can't fund any ongoing costs. We don't usually fund big capital projects through project grants because that's just not the nature of the fund. But I think if you have questions that are specific and what can you apply for, either ask customer services or ask one of your relationship managers.
Okie doke, thank you. Do you know what percentage of applications are being granted at the minute?
At the moment, it isn't high. I don't know the exact percentage, but yeah, it's really tough at the moment. But hopefully that will get better. And as I say, don't be put off if you apply once and you're unsuccessful. I know that it is a massive amount of work to put it in. I've been in that situation. I've been where you are. But it is so tough at the moment. And I would talk to customer services and your relationship managers. If you want to get details of your library relationship managers, ask customer services and they'll be able to put you in contact with the right one for your area. I say it like we've got billions. We've got one in each area. So we have the Southwest, the Southeast, the Midlands, London and the North. And the North is the whole of the North. So it's not like the Northeast or the Northwest. It's that massive area. So yeah.
Okay. And then this is sort of a practical question in making the application. Can you save it in stages or do you have to sit down and do it all in one go?
You can save it in stages, but what I really recommend is for the bits where you have to write, save it in Word and then copy and paste it in. We've also got horrible words, not even word counts. What are they called? Character counts. So you have to be really, really succinct and to the point. So yeah, when you're doing that in Word, make sure you look at how many characters you've got. And then when you copy and paste it, it always seems to have fewer. So you feel like you've got more in Word and then you paste it into Grantium and you're like, that's not fair. But we have to do it too for our appraisal, so I feel your pain.
Is there like a PDF of the application form that we can send out with the materials from this meeting so people can have a look and have an idea of what they need to cover?
I'm not sure. Have a look on the website.
Okay.
Maybe one there.
Okay. Just got a couple more. So I'm reading these ones now off the chat. Does being the lead applicant on a collaborative project mean that as a service we can't also apply for our own funding for a specific service, a service-specific project while the application is in?
Sorry, I didn't get that. I was
so
reading.
I think this means that if they're the lead applicant on a collaborative project, does it mean that they can't then also apply for their own funding while the application's being decided?
I would wait because you again, depending on how much it's for, you might come up against yourself in a meeting. So I would wait until you get the decision.
Okay. And then there's a question about if a project is going to straddle different financial years, does that have an impact on the funding?
No, because it's open all the time, so the funding it's not linked to financial years.
Okay. Do you know, are there any other ACE funds available out there at the moment that people can be made aware of?
Not really, no. We've got no, I mean, project grants is our biggest and most popular and is always open. We don't have anything else at the moment because we've just been doing the emergency funds and the cultural recovery funds. So we don't have anything right now. But keep an eye out.
Great. And this is the last question now that I've got that's been submitted. So would it be seen as repeat funding if a project went really well and you wanted to apply to develop it further? So for example, if you did a project in a particular geographical area and you wanted to then roll it out to another geographical area or nationally or something like that?
It wouldn't be seen as repeat funding. It would be, you would have to make sure that when you put your application in, you talk about the learning that you got from the really successful project. And it's great if you're going to take that learning and do it in a different area or for a different maybe demographic, or you're partnering with another library service. All of that would be absolutely fine.
Okay, I think that's it for questions. So over to you, Ian.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Debbie. And thank you, Claire. This has been absolutely incredible. And has really, just the comments we're getting, it's been really, really helpful and invaluable for everyone.
I'm glad.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. And just in terms of next steps, what we'd like to do, we'll be sending out a feedback survey just to get some feedback on it. But do look at that, everyone, because what we'll include in that is just a couple of questions on how we can support in future as well. There's a couple of things we're thinking about. One is whether we actually set up a grant and project funding group, which may be something that people would be interested in. So we'll ask that question in the feedback survey, and that'll be something where we'll be able to have discussions around projects, what's worked, what hasn't, but then also what questions arise that we can then actually come back to Claire about and ask her if there's any other stuff that comes up. So thank you so much. We'll be sending out the recording as well later on. I think it takes a week or so to process. So hang around for that and we'll send that out. But also keep an eye out this afternoon for the email coming out around the income generation network as well, which obviously everyone is welcome to be part of. So thank you again to Claire, and I really hope that you get inundated with huge amounts of library applications after this, because it feels like it's perfect for the library sector and it's exactly what we need now.